An uneasy calm has returned around most of Kenya after a deeply divisive presidential election rerun has sparked 2 days of violent protests. The streets of Kenya's capital, Nairobi, were quiet Saturday morning, with many shops remaining closed. Business owners say business was badly affected as clashes between opposition protesters and police continued late into the Friday evening in some parts of the capital. The electoral body figures shows incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta leading with more than 90% of the vote after opposition supporters boycotted the poll. Well, let's get more details now from CGTN's Robert Nagila with this following this development for us. He's keeping tabs on the very latest, and he's joining me from the National Results Tallying Center at the Bomas of Kenya in Nairobi. Robert, so how can you describe the security situation around the country 2 days after the vote?
Good afternoon, Beatrice. Well, after 2 days of deadly clashes between police and opposition supporters, primarily in opposition strongholds, the preliminary reports we're getting today is that it's very, very quiet, despite the fact that some tensions still remain in the air. Now, in Kisumu, the scene of deadly clashes between police and protesters, where several people have lost their lives and scores injured, we are told that this morning life appears to be returning somewhat to some normalcy. We are told that some businesses have opened. There appears to be some traffic on the streets as well. People are out and about as well. However, there is still very, very high tension. In Migori, another opposition stronghold, we are told that the roads were still barricaded this morning, despite the fact that it was very, very quiet. There were no running battles between police and protesters there. While in Nairobi, at a suburb not too far from where we are at the moment in Kawangware, where the scene of deadly battles between two communities last evening. It's very quiet today. People are still trying to find out exactly what happened and count their losses as well. So it is quiet across much of the country today, despite the fact that tensions still remain in the air. And this appears to be the result of the cancellation of elections in those 4 counties by the Electoral Commission yesterday. They cited threats against their staff, harassment, kidnapping, and even torture. They say that some opposition supporters actually attacked their electoral staff in their homes and intimidated their families, and that was one of the reasons why they decided that the atmosphere in those 4 counties was just not conducive to hold any elections until a further date. Beatrice?
Robert, just in relation to those 4 counties that the Electoral Commission abandoned the rerun yesterday, is there any clarity yet when that election will be held in those 4 counties, and exactly how will the polls be opened there?
Well, Beatrice, at this particular moment, there's no clarity on any dates. The Commission has not put forward any dates as to when they intend to hold the elections in those 4 counties. Now, I must say as well that it's been very, very difficult getting any information from the Commission, because ever since the tallying center here became functional, the Electoral Commission Chairman, Wafula Chebukati, has just not taken any questions from any journalists. And this appears to be a trend that is likely to follow on until they announce the final results. Now, the Electoral Commission has come under scathing attack from a huge section of the population over not just the fact that they conducted this election itself, but the way they conducted this election. So it remains to be seen whether we will get any further information before the final results are announced, or whether the Electoral Commission intends to announce the dates of the elections in those 4 counties after the results have announced. Your guess is just as good as mine, Beatrice.
Well, Robert, in relation to that result itself, so the vote counting process, the vote tallying process is still ongoing, has been ongoing now since Thursday. How much longer before we have a final result declared?
Well, Beatrice, immediately after the voting, the counting of those votes was very, very fast. At a polling station where we were when the counting began, it basically took about 2 hours after the polling station was shut for the counting to be completed. Having said that, there is a whole process as a result of the nullification of the August poll that the Electoral Commission is going through to ensure that they do not repeat the same mistakes that occurred during the August poll. And that may be one of the reasons why this process is somewhat slow. Now, immediately after the counting at the polling stations, once the results are received here at the tallying center via the forms, of course, there's a verification process. You can probably see that taking place behind me, which is very slow and tedious, of all the forms that are delivered here and the results themselves. That's the main reason why this process is taking longer than we actually thought it would take. Now, as we speak, as of this moment, according to the results posted on the screens by the Electoral Commission, these are the verified results. They've got verified results from 79 of 291 constituencies. So it just gives you an idea that we still have a ways to go at this particular moment. Now, the current number that the incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta has from the verified results is just over 2.5 million, and we expect this number to go much, much higher. Local media incidentally reporting that that figure is at 7.5 million, but the verified results that we have here is 2.5 million, but that number expected to go much, much higher over the coming hours and days ahead. Beatrice?
Right, Robert Nagila joining us there from the National Tallying Center in Nairobi's capital, in Kenya's capital, in Nairobi. Well, calm has returned to the Kenyan opposition stronghold of Kisumu. This is following days of unrest upon news that a rerun of Thursday's election will further be delayed. Over 97% of the people here voted for opposition leader Raila Odinga in August's ballot. No polling stations opened at all during Thursday's controversial rerun, as even election officials stayed away, heeding their party's call for a boycott. Over the past few days, police have fought running battles with protesters trading stones and tear gas. Kenya's Election Commission chose to postpone voting planned for Saturday in some opposition strongholds, citing safety concerns for their staff. For Kisumu's residents, though, it is relief that the spate of violence is over for the moment.
As you can see now, due to the postponement of the postponed rerun election, things have gone back to normal. Vehicles and bikes are passing. Things now seem to be back to normal.
People who are doing their businesses, if the election can be repeated, they will lose a lot of things, and there will be destruction of